Space whales? Nope, rather deal with devils. Chapter 18, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. Just to be clear, the supernatural races weren't the only beings in the bounty books. Just the vast majority, as many supernatural beings for whatever reason gained more life force, power, lifespan, or just needed to harm or kill humans to simply survive. But there were plenty of humans on the bounty books. A trio of human necromancers who slaughtered an entire mall after making earthen walls to close off the exits and then harvested every life for their ritual and then reanimated the bodies to attack the supernatural who came to kill the bastards. There was a whole separate bounty book on beings human and not, who used overused hypnosis to enslave humans without magical energy to ignore the hypnosis. In a world of might makes right a lot of times and magic that was stupidly open to doing whatever the hell you wanted if you had enough power, opened up the can of worms that were psychos doing crazy stuff that was a death sentence, and that was the source of the bounty boards. Like the necromancer queen of North America, basically, after she got caught up in an organ harvesting operation she awoke her sacred gear. A stupidly overpowered subspecies of the sacred gear Osiris scale that could put ghostly spirits made out of pieces of the wielder's own soul into a corpse to control it, with the reanimated corpse having the abilities it would have in life. Typically it was like the Sephiroth Grawl in that despite how strong it was in theory, it always ended up driving the wielder insane or killing them. This subspecies didn't kill her, drive her insane. Most definitely, as instead she could capture the soul of whatever or whoever she killed, and then she could use those souls as either reapers that could attack people invisibly upon their very souls to reap their souls for their mistress, or she could use those souls to pilot bodies. Any bodies from literally any time period, as her balance breaker allowed her to restore any corpse to its optimal condition. This necromancer queen, driven functionally insane by the countless howling souls she had captured over the years, was one of the top bounties and worth literal immortality, as the Chinese pantheon was willing to give peaches of immortality in return for her head, as in one of her insane rages she went to China and wiped a city off the face of the earth and then had the zombies from the city attack everywhere in China, killing millions, until the celestial bureaucracy joined with the Hindu pantheon to force her back to America. And she was pure human. She wasn't a devil, fallen, demigod, or anything like that. She just got a sacred gear and literally over the course of 2 decades was responsible for over 4 million deaths of humans and other races. DXD was a huge universe alone, with each and every major faith being alive or was alive at some point, with their realms existing alongside Earth. The 8-odd billion humans on Earth were one thing, but you had to remember the dozens of billions of humans alive in the underworld, the Greek realms, the Norse realms, and so on. Either way, life on the anchor of reality on Earth was not limited to just Earth. My thoughts and ruminations on the universe of DXD were broken as Momo hummed before speaking. "Whatcha thinking about, Jake?" she asked me curiously. And for a moment I wondered if I should open my mouth about how little I felt in this massive universe, let alone any others I could visit almost at will. But I shook that existential crisis away with all the practice any man had at bottling our shower thoughts of what-ifs as I responded. I was thinking about the necromancer queen and how a peach of immortality would taste. I joked and Momo's smile died and she shook her head as she pinched my arm. "Jake, don't even think about it," she said slowly while swallowing in fear of the woman. "That crazy woman is the reason why all corpses of supernatural beings are destroyed if not taken for reagents. She literally has Drake and Albion's bodies as puppets." She hissed in a warning, and yeah. Even with my Siowa bullshit, I was going to stay fucking far away from her. After a moment of silence, as we walked through the forest, "These wolf yokai we were hunting last had their magical signature," I said wryly. "I wonder how Drake and Albion would feel about that," I said with a wry smile, and Momo's lips twitched in a smile that could only barely imagine the carnage should the dragons drive their wielders against the woman. Actually, Valley may be well aware of her with how he is part of the Grigori, so there's obviously been some kind of reaction. But either way, with that somber topic away with, we paid more attention to our surroundings as we followed the direction in which the trio of Okuri Inu went. And we didn't have to look hard, as it seemed the trio of brothers were having a cookout with music coming out of a boombox with a deer cooking to the side of the fire. "They do realize there is a bounty on their heads, right?" I asked dryly, looking at the trio in utter disdain as I eyed the wolf yokai that had human bodies from the neck down but for heads had a wolf's head. But Momo sighed and she nudged me as she whispered, "Murder is not by any means illegal, Jake. Bounties are just people that caused issues for the people in the local government, or the leaders want them silenced for whatever reason. She said, shrugging, and I made a mental note of that. I didn't want to be a tool who killed some guy who had caught a leader's dirty laundry. Momo, you keep a distance and make sure they don't escape, I said, giving her a look before I bit my lip and continued. Actually, do you want to form another temporary contract again so we can make our magic stronger? I asked with a small smile, and Momo flushed, but after a moment of thought she nodded. Just because these wolf yokai weren't supposed to be strong didn't mean we shouldn't go in there at our best. So Momo's soft hand intertwined with my own, and I made a thread of my mana connected from my hand into hers, and she welcomed that mana into her body, forming a connection between us. Unbeknownst to either of us, a very dim purple womb tattoo appeared over Momo's womb. Now, with the connection formed between us, I felt a bit more energetic, and I got almost a sense of self in Momo's area. Likewise, she could take in my own senses if she wanted. With the connection boosting us, I took a breath, and seeing as we had no plans to take these wolf yokai alive, I wasn't going to bother to capture them. So with the sound of flesh being ripped apart, soul edge formed in my hands, and Momo flinched as the demonic red. I looked at her in alien curiosity, but I didn't say anything to her. I dipped down to get proper leverage with my feet while boosting my body with magic. And as much as I could, I increased my reaction speed, especially as the ground under my feet seemingly exploded as I dashed forward at great speeds. A split 3 seconds, a split 3 maybe 4 seconds was all it took for my overly prepped body to dash 100 meters, and just as the wolf yokai I was dashing at turned around at his brother's warning, Soul Edge savagely bisected him at the upper chest, with the two halves of his body falling apart as I grabbed the upper half by one of its arms and threw it at one of the lunging wolf yokai to slow him down as I blocked a punch from the last brother on the flat of Soul Edge, but the force of the punch pushed me across the ground by a good 5 meters or so. Do it, I mentally ordered Soul Edge, and several mouths lined with vicious teeth and a mass of wriggling tentacles for a tongue opened up along the meaty sections of the massive blade, and then as the wolf paused his follow-up charge with his fist now replaced by claws on his hands at seeing the dangerous and disgusting-looking mouths on the sword, I didn't give him a chance to make up his mind, even as the other brother was crying while holding the top half of the brother I already cut down. With an unholy screech from Soul Calibur that attacked a person's very soul, the wolf yokai in front of me screeched in concert as he couldn't help but hold his wolf ears on top of his head with his eyes screwed shut at the literal soul-tearing scream of insanity coming from my sword. And in that couple of seconds, the wolf yokai so stupidly closed his eyes and covered his ears. He no longer had to worry about his head or pain at all, as right down the middle past his hands covering his head I cut the wolf yokai in half down to his chest before pulling Soul Edge back as I didn't want to bend over to push the blade through his guts and hips to properly cut him in half. You bastard, you killed them. The last wolf yokai screamed out hysterically as he held his rapidly dying brother's upper torso, and I took a breath and swallowed down my bile at the sight of both of my victims before I dashed forward again. And that last brother didn't throw his brother aside to defend himself. He seemingly just accepted his death as Soul Edge cleaved his head apart like an axe at high speeds would make a watermelon explode with its impact. And at that sight, I finally lost control over my stomach. I literally vomited on the corpses as my vision blurred at the acrid feeling of my stomach acid scorching my throat. For a moment I was in still shock at what I had done, and then I violently flinched with my sword raising as I felt a set of arms wrap around me from my back. But feeling the soft breasts pushing into my back, I realized it was Momo, who, at seeing the brothers were the last two, had come up behind me,